Once upon a stressful evening, a child finds himself in the middle of yet another argument between his parents. As a clueless young one who hasn't yet received a PhD in adult problems and misery studies, the child, henceforth known as Ron, decides it's bedtime and drifts off to dreamland. But wait, this isn't your average dream where you're flying or your teeth fall out. No. Ron gets a visit from a large, terrifying creature called Mr. Redface. Because why dream of puppies when you can have nightmare fuel? Mr. Redface, a scary entity with all the charm of a horror movie villain and the appearance of an undercooked lobster, seems to have a penchant for tormenting innocent people. Not a fan of late-night guests, especially ones without snacks, Ron eventually wakes up unsure whether it was all just a creepy dream or a teaser for some strange new Netflix series. The story takes a twist when Ron hears knocking at the door. Opening it, he finds his mother, exhausted, hair askew and barely holding it together. She apologizes for being late, blaming work. Ron, feeling more than a bit neglected, points out that it was his birthday. Yes, his one special day in the year, and she didn't even bring cake. The mother, realizing her blunder but unwilling to admit she forgot, quickly says, Mr. Redface got you a present for being such a good kid, but you can only get it if you go back to bed now. Just when you think things couldn't get more awkward, the father enters the scene, disgruntled and ready for round 2 of the adult bickering championship. "Where have you been?" he demands, clearly not buying the late shift at work story for the 5th day in a row. The mother is either bad at lying or bad at schedules. Maybe both. She smells slightly like a failed cocktail experiment, adding more fuel to the fiery argument. Poor Ron, caught in the middle of this tension, does what any kid would do. He goes back to bed, now thinking he'll at least get a present from Mr. Redface. What could go wrong? As he falls asleep, he suddenly sees the door creak open, and there's Mr. Redface, lurking in the corner like he's auditioning for a haunted house. The next morning, Ron finds a creepy doll in his room that looks suspiciously like him. But hey, it talks, and when you're a kid, a talking doll is about the coolest thing since sliced bread, even if it is a little unsettling. Now, here's where it gets wild. The doll, with a voice that could either be cute or terrifying depending on your mood, tells Ron that they are connected, like Wi-Fi, but weirder. The doll eats when Ron eats, feels pain when Ron stubs his toe, the whole works. And so, as any kid would, Ron tests this magic by grabbing some food. Things start floating around like it's Hogwarts, and a bottle of wine even decides to do a little mid-air dance before crashing to the ground. Ron panics. He knows his dad isn't going to be thrilled about the new interior decorating scheme. The doll, ever the strange little sidekick, reassures Ron, "Oh, don't worry. Mr. Redface has taken care of your dad." This is not comforting. This is code for, "We've crossed into bizarre territory and there's no map." With his father missing, Ron, still having the innocence of a child who believes in Santa Claus, is determined to bring him back. His journey takes him through portals, guided by a magical radio, into an alternate realm where he meets a bookkeeper cat. Yes, you read that right. A cat that's into accounting. This furry guide points Ron to his father who, spoiler alert, is not having a great time. He's trapped, trembling, and repeating the same phrases like he's stuck on an endless loop of a terrible podcast. Ron, the brave soul, tries to rescue his dad, but before he can succeed, a giant arm yanks him back to his own world. His mother, witnessing the aftermath of all this supernatural drama, tries to ground him in reality. "Ron, sweetie, I think you've been watching too many horror flicks. Also, you forgot your meds again," she says, possibly thinking about calling Dr. Phil next. But Ron is undeterred. As the story unfolds, we learn his father, the true Mr. Redface, wasn't a villain of the supernatural kind, but of a much more human, tragic sort. A violent, abusive man. The doll was not merely a toy, but a reflection of Ron's attempt to rationalize his harsh reality and cling to some semblance of hope and normalcy. The story reaches a haunting conclusion when it's revealed that the events were Ron's desperate efforts to process a trauma he couldn't fully understand. His own end came at the hands of his father, and all the supernatural elements were Ron's innocent mind trying to make sense of a world that failed him. The so-called spell he found in the alternate realm turns out to be nothing more than a business card for a motel where his father fled after his horrific deed. As the authorities close in on his father, led there by Ron's innocent but misguided actions in his otherworldly quest, the father faces the consequences of his monstrous actions. Ron's mother, who had her own failings, is left grieving, realizing too late the cost of her own mistakes and neglect. However, in the afterlife, Ron meets other children who, like him, suffered due to the sins of their parents. Together, they find a new sense of freedom, finally unburdened by the misery of their past lives. No more Mr. Redface. No more neglected birthdays. No more endless nights of fear. And that's the twisty, turny tale of a boy, a doll, and a very bad man who became a cautionary tale in his own right. As always, it's been Xqua here to guide you through this roller coaster of emotions. Until next time, stay away from dolls, keep your family drama to daytime TV, and never trust a man with a suspiciously red face.